as it was a perfectly reasonable assumption to have at the time that Nigeria offered the opportunity for self-actualization, right? And even after Buhari came in, even though I knew things were going to get bad because I had an idea of who Buhari was and what he represented, I guess it's not, seeing is believing.
Right.
So you still want to, you still maintain this stubbornly optimistic part of you somewhere. Like up until that point, even though so many of my friends had left, they've gone to Canada, they've gone to the UK, they've gone to Australia, all over the place. I could have left too if I was really serious about it, but I would just say, oh yeah, me too, me too, I'll japa. But when you're dragging your feet,
I get you 100%. There's a way Nigeria will push you to that breaking point that you won't be able to hold on anymore. Or your case is different. In fact,
so that was what happened.
Yeah,
exactly. That was what happened in October 2020. Up until that point, I wasn't really psychologically committed to the idea that things have reached a breaking point yet. I wasn't really yet. And then EndSARS happened. I remember maybe I was a bit naive at the time when the protests were going on, because I protested both in Lagos and in Abuja. I didn't really realize how dangerous what I was doing was. The fact that when I was going to Abuja to protest, I announced myself. I made a big show of it. I posted my flight ticket on Twitter. It was so there are things I think back now and I'm like, was I trying to get killed? When I arrived in Abuja, I took a selfie at the door of the place.
It was fun. People were like, it was an experience for the young people until they brought
it on. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is. So October 10, October 11, even though they chased us, they beat us up, they shot in the air, they used tear gas on us. But even then, the idea that these people were going to do like Tiananmen Square on us, surely, even these people have a line that they cannot cross. Even Abacha did not do that. And then I can't forget it, that evening of October 20, because during that afternoon when they sent people to remove the CCTV cameras from the toll gate, I guess we kind of suspected that something was going to happen. But what I had in mind was they would send military people to shoot in the air and start flogging people with horsewhip. That's what I thought. They would throw tear gas and scatter everybody, and then they will now put a huge military presence at the gates to stop people from coming back. That's what I thought they were going to do. And I was actually taking a nap, and it was my phone that woke me up. It was a friend who was calling, and this guy was in Abuja, and he was calling me, and he said, and where I was staying at the time, my flat was like 2 kilometers away from Lekki toll gate. It was like near Chevron, right? And the guy was like, they are shooting people at Lekki toll gate. I said, you're lying. I went to Twitter. Next thing I started seeing live video. They said, go to DJ Switch's Instagram. I went there, and I think that was where the illusion finally broke. Because what I was witnessing, I was watching a massacre live.
Like, is this new?
Is this the kind of thing?
Is this what we have been living off for the past 20 days until now? I can imagine
the kind of thing that you watch on like History Channel. That sometime in 1980 something, Egyptian dictator Abdel Nasser did a massacre in so on. So that's the kind of, it seems very distant and far away, and then here it is happening 2 kilometers away from you. And immediately it happened, I remember thinking to myself, this is my friend who called. One of the very first things he said to me after he called was, when are you leaving Nigeria? And the reason he made that comment, two of us were thinking the same way that time, was that now that it has got to the point that these guys have started shooting people in the streets, unarmed civilians, they started doing that, then logically, the next set of people that are going to come after is the people who are going to make any kind of noise about it, or the people who are going to call them out. So they will come after journalists, they will come after academics, they will come after trade unionists, they will go after activists, feminists, anybody who offers any kind of loud opinion to the contrary. of what they want. They're going to come after them. So I remember it was that night actually that I started making my plans finally to exit Nigeria. I left Nigeria November 8th, which was just over 2 weeks later or 3 weeks later. But it was that night actually that I actually started
You're
making my
thinking like
plans.
you actually need to move now.
Yeah, yeah. So after, and you are right, when that happened, everything changed. Even the way I viewed my work, it changed. My work stopped being fun for me. I started considering my work to be a
Like
fight.
an act of activism or something like
Yeah,
that.
it's an act of defiance. That's how I started seeing my work. Because
Science.
up until that point, I was living in Lagos. So, I would write about people, and then at the weekend, we all still hang out at the same bar in Lekki or whatever. And even though they don't like me or whatever, but
But it
it's
wasn't
like
so
it wasn't that serious. But for the
right.
first time, it started feeling as if, okay, it is that serious now. There's life and death involved in this. And that's when some of the threats that I had received before, it now became real to me that, okay, this person wasn't just talking. That time, these people are actually capable of doing that. I remember I had an uncle. I'm not going to mention his name, but we shared the same surname anyway. So he used to be a deputy comptroller general of immigration,
Right.
and he is obviously, like, he's a party member. He gets contracts from Abuja. He's a proper APC man, right? And
Right.
I think it was 2019. I traveled to Badagry to celebrate the Salah, the family, the extended. And this man who had never really said a word to me, because he came with his full convoy and everything. He came specific for me. And he
Wow.
said, we've been seeing all those things you've been writing. That he now touched the glasses on my face. I can't forget this thing. And he said, have
Hmm.
you been to DSS headquarters in Abuja? That the DSS underground cell, that it goes for seven stories underground. That with these your glasses, you will not see anything inside there. And
Wow.
he said it with a smile on his face. But at the
So,
time, maybe it didn't
David,
really sink in.
just so
Because
we
I was,
understand this very well, yeah, just so we understand this very well. After eating that reality of what happened on the 20th, in fact, your first
yes.
threat came from a family member. Can we say that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah,
indirectly, the first threat to remind you of what they can do to you based on your activity
yeah,
or activities came from a family member.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
interesting.
But maybe I didn't take it as seriously as I should have. Maybe partly
That is
because it
this
was a
one.
family member, and then partly because, like, again, I grew up in Lagos. Like,
Right.
there's a certain sense of ownership that you feel. Like, who is going to do anything to
To
me
me
here?
in
You
Lagos.
understand? And then October 2020 happened, and it became clear that it doesn't matter. Whoever you think you are doesn't matter. They will shoot you. They actually will. And then bear in mind, it wasn't just the fact that they shot people on October 20. People always forget that there were several massacres in the week after
That's
across
right.
Nigeria. People always
That's
forget
right.
that. So even across in places like Agege, because it's always Lekki Toll Plaza, we remember. But there were more people who died in Agege than at Lekki Toll Plaza. That's always forgotten.
Hmm.
There were other localized massacres around Lagos. There was one in River State, in a place called Oyigbo. People always forget that.
Hmm.
And many people till today are not aware that it was in January 2021, which was 3 months after the events, or 2 months after the events of
Hmm.
that NSAS period. I think it was Sahara Reporters that put out the story at the time. There were a group of, I think, 100 women from Oyigbo
Yeah.
who were freed from Mogadishu barracks in Abuja. So they were basically kidnapped from Oyigbo. They were taken to a barracks nearby. They were kept in custody. They were raped multiple times, and then they were transferred to Abuja, to Mogadishu barracks in Abuja, where they were raped for weeks until an NGO took up the case, and then they all got released en masse in January 2021. That particular story, for whatever reason, didn't really get any traction.
It
But if you
didn't get
Google
through.
it, it's there.
Hmm.
So these were the things that made me understand that I've been living in a fantasy. I've been living in a delusion. This, what I thought Nigeria was, is not it at all. Nigeria is still very much is that place I knew in the 1990s. It's still that place. The brief Obasanjo good luck thing was a flash in the pan. We have now fully regressed back to mean. We are where we were when I was 6 years old.
Wow.
So
Now,
it was a very...
you know something, right? I have followed a lot. And tonight that you are sharing your evening with us, which indeed is quite interesting, detailed, because we are going to get to the part where your work, after all of that, I've started making so much impact, right, that you became a direct target for, in fact, not just APC, right, including their sympathizers, including the government of Nigeria, Kaduna in particular. I know the story of Kaduna, El Rufaya, the little finger, doing all is what they know how to do best, finding a corrupt institution outside Nigeria that they could buy sort of a goodwill with, right? But, you know, there was so much warning, because that's what I see in you. Your work are always to warn us. You get what I mean? To stop living in that world that the politicians, as well as the government, wherever government it is, especially APC in general, I mean in particular, that to not accept the world they are trying to create because it's not real, right?
Yeah,
so that's why you see your work. Like you said, it became a tool of advanced defiance, you said, right? So now you want us, but somehow they're really good. But in a way, for 3 or let's say up to 3 years or over 2 years now, but there is something they were unable to kill in people, despite all of that and the deniers that followed. And I think it's that fighting spirit that actually birthed, or should I say the spirit that birthed the protests, the answers, or the one that was born immediately after the people were martyred that day.
Yes.
Yeah. So your work became a big threat that kept, or should I say, your work became one of the burning flame that those who were supposed to have been killed with their spirit, everything killed, with the level of violence unleashed on them, and it gave birth to obedience. I mean, today, that same obedience is now under never seen before propaganda attack. They took it to an election. What were you expecting, David? Like, you became a big target, right? Yeah. And at that point, you knew you were actually fighting a cause. It's either the establishment crumbles and something new starts, or we are all doomed.
Yeah.
But here we are, right? What were you expecting in the last 10 months?
So the first thing I will admit is I was not expecting the election to be cartoonishly rigged the way it was, because an election being rigged in Nigeria is not headline news, but the very cartoonish way it was done, I wasn't expecting that. I thought because of the amount of scrutiny that this election was going to be facing, and the technology that was going to be deployed, and the sheer amount of eyeballs, local and international, that these people would find, at least if they fiddle with it, so they're always going to fiddle with it, they would find another way to do it. Instead, it was the same old. You know, you were seeing those visuals of result sheets. Someone, the 100 votes for Labour Party, someone will cancel the second zero and add 90 to the APC, and you will see the cancellation or the TPEX. And it was like, what is this? Really? Like, I honestly did not expect that. I thought they were going to be smarter about it. I thought it would be maybe when this thing is uploaded from the polling unit via the beavers to the server, they'll have some backdoor access to the server where they'll fiddle with the numbers. I thought that's how they were going to do it. I didn't know it was going to be this very
like in a way that you even feel like you can't even rig professionally. You can't even rig properly.
Yeah, it wasn't even the fact that it was.
Yeah, you failed the rigging. Go on, sorry.
Yeah, it wasn't even the fact that it was brazen. It was how amateurish it was. That what this told me is that these people were actually, as malevolent as they are, I gave them too much credit. They don't have as much ability as I thought they had, because when it came down to it, all they could do was just use violence and gra. And then it made an announcement at 4 a.m., literally 4 a.m.
in the morning.
And then And then the man, immediately he was announced as president-elect. Next thing, he ran away. They had been looking for him to serve him the papers for petition. He has been dodging. It was like, really? So your plan is just to spam all of us, to just run away and run away, and then maybe like 48 hours to your inauguration, you now
Not
sneak into the
sure.
country. And like, really, is that how you plan to run a country?
Hmm.
By being some sort of, I don't know, minority government or something? How do you imagine this is going to work exactly? And which is why I personally am of the opinion that if this man is actually sworn in, putting aside all the implications for us as
Mhm,
Nigerians,
mhm,
he is not. I'm being very generous when I say this. If he lasts for 18 months in office, I will be very surprised. Like, and this
very
is
good.
not even about his health or something. I'm talking about the people around him, right? This
I was
man
actually
does
coming
not
to
have.
that. You get what I mean? I was coming to that, yeah. I told people, I said, one of the people who made Buhari to escape a lot of things that he got away with are the Tinubu's people with the propaganda and
Exactly,
everything they have been pushing.
exactly,
They pushed the
exactly.
propaganda to the point that at some point, even the Northerners were surprised. Like,
Yes,
you are so cold-hearted, though. Like, and if you monitor this, right, because they have been the engine room of the propaganda, yeah, they have now taught the
yeah,
Northerners to some extent, right, to
yes.
also kind of repeat some vile messages that ordinarily, before 2015, a Northerner will be like, no, not that bad. No, I won't do that. But now, these days,
Very happy
they are
that I'm very happy that you made the link to 2015, because it was 2015 that all of
that
this
was
nonsense
Genesis.
began.
That's Genesis. A lot of people have sort of forgotten because this is the world we live in now. This is our world now. It's about who can run anybody out of town violently, and the people who does it better is the government. Sure, you get. But there is something I actually am so curious about, and I bet a lot of people watching us too will be interested. You did a wonderful investigation on the genesis of terrorism in Nigeria. You didn't just do that. You presented evidence. You mentioned names. And not just that, you publicly, repeatedly, challenged them to sue you if there's any iota of lie or defamation in your publication up to this day. Rather, they only came for your person, who you are or who you should be, and all of that. And then they move on. Then you drop this bombshell, something that ordinarily, morally, for those who are propagating religious this and that, morally, they should kind of question their own support of this same man. But Tinubu and gang, with the success of propaganda over the years, Baba, now they have planned to rule Nigeria. So talking about people around him, with you as an investigative journalist, Baba, the level of propaganda we are seeing right now, what do you think is going to be like when they finally grab that power? We mentioned the media will be targeted, intelligent academia will be targeted, a lot of us will be targeted. Can you explain it from the perspective of an investigative journalist who have done a lot on these
So,
people? Just so we know what we are up against, please.
so these are the kind of people who, when they see the story of that Saudi journalist who was dissolved in acid in Turkey, Jamal Khashoggi, when
Kashuge,
they
yeah.
see that story, their reaction isn't sympathy or disgust. Their reaction is admiration. Oh, it would be nice to be able to have that kind of capacity to pull off something like that. These are people who would love to be able to go after even people in the diaspora. I mean, they have tried to come after me, not just come after my reputation, but come after me physically, even outside Nigeria. They have tried. Like,
Hmm.
it wasn't you that I mentioned this to. It was a different platform. But I was so last year, after I did the story on him, and then especially after I released it in the documentary format, which made it open to a whole new audience. They held a Zoom meeting about me. They called it a APC Renewed Hope, something something Horizon. They basically had a Zoom meeting where they were discussing people that they said were supposedly prominent obedience that needed to be neutralized. And I was discussed there, and they hired a security consultant. They paid somebody money to track me down. And
Really?
the plan, yeah, they paid somebody money to try. I think the person scammed them because, according to the information I received, this person claimed that he had tracked me to an address in Johannesburg. I've never been to South Africa in my life, so I don't know which person he say he tracked down. But
So they paid
they hired
somebody
somebody
who
and they
told
paid
them
him money.
tracked you down to Johannesburg in South Africa.
Yeah, yeah.
Obviously, a scam. Please continue.
Well, the person claimed he tracked me down to a hotel in Johannesburg, and the idea was basically
What
to
are they going to do
stage some
to
kind of an
you when they
accident.
grab you? Like, what were they going to do to you? Kashuge
the
you?
idea was the idea was to make it look like an accident, basically, or to make it look like I killed myself, according to the information that I received. So, and
Wow.
apparently there's still a price on my head. There's still a figure on my head. So these are the kind of people we are dealing with. So in addition to going after people with voices, the
Mhm.
first thing they're going to come after. So I'm sure you know the Nigerian media is pretty much already inside their pockets, pretty
Uh,
much already sewn up. They don't even need to go after the media because they already control it financially. But
mm,
what they're going to come after is the internet space. They're going to
mm,
come after social media. And when I say social media, I'm not just talking about Twitter and Facebook. I'm talking about YouTube, like the platform where we're having where this conversation is going to be hosted. I'm
absolutely.
talking about the relatively um, open access version of the internet that we have now. They're going to come after it. People, again, there are so many stories that people forget. People
Mm,
forget that in June 2021, the week after the Buhari government announced the Twitter ban, live, and this was reported by FIJ. Again, I don't know why this story didn't get big. Lai Mohammed held a meeting with Chinese government officials in Abuja, and the purpose of that meeting was to discuss the possibility of cooperation between Nigeria and China in creating a version of China's Golden Shield internet censorship system for Nigeria. Now, apparently, the reason nothing really came of it at the time was because the the money that was going to be involved, because Nigeria would have had to pay China to do that. The money that was involved, Nigeria didn't have the money at the time,
mm.
so it kind of got put on ice. But that meeting has been held. Whatever MOU they signed there is still in action,
It's just for
and
somebody to grab it and then
you know
say, "Oh, yeah, activate it."
exactly.
Right.
And it's one APC administration to another APC administration, so there's continuity.
Hmm.
You understand? This man has already started appointing people into his handover committee. So these things they did not end with Buhari. These people are going to accelerate those things. So all of the propaganda tools that they used to seize power in 2015 and then to deploy their incredible propaganda efforts in 2023, they're going to come after all of them.
Hmm.
All of them. So the way it is in China, if you're in China, you can't. If so, say where I am now, where you, if you were in China, we couldn't be having this conversation
We
because you can't
won't.
use StreamYard. You can't use StreamYard. You can't use Zoom. You can't use WhatsApp video calls. All these platforms we take for
The
granted, these
open
ways we
source now.
communicate with each other, you can't.
Hmm.
So these are the ways that these people are going to come after the free flow of information. That's the first thing. Free flow of information. Second thing going to come after, and in my
But
opinion, the
would,
most
would that
dangerous
then
thing.
mean that if we are talking about illegitimate person, half of the country is saying that they don't want him, they didn't elect him, right? And somebody who is riding on this
Mm.
ethnic, tribal, divisive rhetorics, and at the same time pointing fingers at others of doing the same thing, we can understand, where the young Nigerians are coming from when they're upset with the system. In a democracy, they are expected or allowed to. But it has now come to a stage whereby
Mm.
the real headache of the APC is the obedience. They are doing so much to gaslight them, blow dog whistle, and make people think they are the real problem. Now, you know why this is dangerous, or I believe it is dangerous, is that when Buhari came, I never actually envisaged a clannish sort of government. Okay, I was just expecting some old thieves to regroup and give office and all of that, and the business continues, right? But the clannishness that Tinubu and Co are building is not anyone that is of unity. We can see it. Citizens are being gaslighted to be killed. Citizens are being gaslighted and being called non-citizen enough. Now, in a one Nigeria,
Exactly.
where we have seen the antecedent and the actions of these people, we have seen them romanticizing with a terrorist, and they are actually like targeting their own citizens, like they killed the citizens in 2020. You just said something about international espionage now. A government that is capable of sending a spy after their own citizens, sending them into exile, and the rest of that, Baba, the obedient, again, I'm just going to put it that way, okay? The obedient, how far do you think, right, they can still push, if I may just put it that way, with what we have witnessed so far, despite all this propaganda we are seeing? Because you are from Badagry, a Yoruba man. Today, that's your your indigenship is being put to question because of your expose on Tinubu. A lot of people have been told that they don't look Yoruba enough. Some have been told that they don't even speak Yoruba, therefore, they are not Yoruba enough. Now, we are now hearing narratives like tainted blood, half blood. And these are
Your mom is
dangerous
from.
that I have never really witnessed during Buhari's time. Now, if they have this capacity now that they don't have the power, so from the angle of investigative journalists, which actually makes the obedient fight a kind of legitimate one at this point, right? Baba, what would you say are the chances, if I could probably put it that way, with all these propagandas? Go on.
The thing is that regardless of how much capacity for violence that these people have, at the end of the day, a state only has as much power as citizens allow it to have. Um, it's easy to forget that Nigeria proportionally is the world's most under-policed states. Proportional to its population, Nigeria has the armed.
Lowest amount,
Sorry, I'm hearing my voice echoing. Hello, are you there? Hello.
Continue. 70 years old man. Child. Jesus is Lord. Continue. 70 years old man. Child. Jesus is Lord. Continue. 70 years old man. Child. Jesus is Lord. Continue. 70 years old man.
Very sorry about that, David. Okay. I just, the whole thing just froze for like 5 seconds. Okay. So I had to quickly do something behind the scene. I'm glad that I didn't lose you there. We are talking about the propaganda now unleashed on the obedience, the battle they have been fighting for months now. The one that actually rattled them enough, right? To the point that today, right, the obedience are being projected as more dangerous than the people that actually stole election.
So what I was saying was, regardless of the capacity of these people to inflict violence on people, where you have such an overwhelm, because it's easy to forget that the so-called obedience are not just one tiny group of people somewhere. Statistically, according to the actual outcome of the election, it's actually a majority, right? True. So the so-called obedience are not necessarily people who support the Labour Party or who love Peter Obi as a person. It's just people who had enough common sense to see that this is the only remotely livable option that there is. if you want to have any kind of hope for a better life. So that's actually statistically the majority of the country. So how many people do you want to shoot? How many reputations do you want to destroy? How many people are you going to try and censor? These guys are going to stretch themselves too thin. I know this for a fact because I maybe because of my sort of exposure to this group of people in Lagos, because I grew up in and around this crowd. Tinubu himself spent years trying to convince my dad to go back to the civil service to work under him. There's a funny story behind that actually. So in the 80s, back when he was buying his first properties in Lagos, he met my dad, who was then the director of lands in Lagos, and um, he had like an allocation and whatnot, and it needed to be signed by the director of lands and forwarded to the governor. So what he was expecting was the usual thing of the director who ask for a gunje before he will pass it to the governor. But instead, in the space of 48 hours, my dad sent both documents, didn't ask him for a single kobo. And the man was completely taken aback. He had never seen that kind of thing before. So when he came to power in 1999, between 1999 and 2006, he came to my dad 3 times, trying to convince him to come and work for him, come back to the civil service, become a PAMSEC, and then, these dreams they sell you, and then I'll push you for Senate, then, one day you might even become governor. When my dad told him no, he went for the next best option, who was a man called Benga Shafa, whom you might know, who was my dad's junior.
I know Benga Shafa.
So I grew up kind of exposed to Tinubu at very up close, right? The man is, when people describe him as some sort of mastermind or supreme politician, I always have to hold my laughter.
Right.
This man, when he gets to Abuja, I know for a fact what is going to happen. He and his people are going to try and run Nigeria the way they run Lagos. And it's going to fail disastrously, and they might end up losing their lives for it. Because what he's going to do is that he's going to try and start pointing guns at everybody and everything. That's what he's going to try and do. He's going to try and use the MC Oluomo solution for everything, because he's going to very quickly realize that the way he has all that money in Lagos, you can bribe everybody that matters in Lagos. You can't do that in Nigeria. Nigeria has how many 100 million people we don't even know? How many people do you want to bribe? And then the Nigerian federal government public finances,
factoring in how he even came to that power, which is almost illegitimate. How is it going to be
illegitimate? You understand? So, and then the federal government doesn't have money right now. The Nigerian public finances are probably as bad as they've been since Babangida. So his own solution will be to start trying to use the MC Oluomo solution on the entire country. Start using the armed forces to act like MC Oluomo. And the minute you do that, the minute you start putting soldiers on the road and get ideas, you are shortening your own lifespan. I know this was going to happen. He has no other way of dealing with problems. It's either he throws money at it or he throws violence at it. Those are his only two tools. The man does not have any idea how to lead. I can say this categorically because I know him. So what's going to happen is that some people might get thrown in prison. People will get thrown in prison if he gets into office. Some people might even die. But as I said, that's that Greek story of Icarus, who flew too close to the sun, and then the sun melted the wax on his wings and he fell to earth and died. That's what's going to happen to him. Because he's going to try and sustain that thing for much longer than it's possible to sustain it. That's not, even Buhari, as much of a despot as he was and is, even Buhari, always easy to forget, Buhari didn't rule with just tyranny alone. Buhari was genuinely loved in some parts of the country. Buhari had an actual support base, a genuine organic support base. He did, and he still does. This guy does not have that. He doesn't have a genuine organic support. What he has is people who have either been incentivized to support him, which is money, or people who have been using the usual ethnic and religious
the religious tribal card that they always pay
have been pushed into indirectly supporting him by attacking his opponents, which is violence. So it's the same thing: money, violence. That's all he has. There's nothing organic there. There's nothing genuine there. So when this guy gets in, yes, for a few months it will be pure chaos. But that chaos will not last. It can't. That's the truth. The minute he starts trying to use, and something else I should mention, I can
Like
tell
the
you
way
this
they
for
were
a fact.
writing, like the way they are writing to DSS, writing to the NBC, telling them what to do. So if they go on that way, it's just going to get everybody more angrier, I believe.
The minute,
Sorry.
the minute he does that, especially with the military, because it's always easy to forget that the military still holds a lot of power in Nigeria. Nigeria is
Yeah,
not really
those
that.
Buhari's
Nigeria
government
is not
together.
that.
Are they not those
Exactly.
Buhari's government together, using the military to
Exactly.
protect himself? That
And the military
go on.
the military and the military is still very much a northern institution. It's not a national institution, it's a northern institution. So the minute you piss those guys off too
Again,
much,
David, sorry, did you say northern institution and not
yes,
Nigerian
it is.
institution? Did I hear you?
Yes, it's not a national institution yet. It's still very much a northern institution. It's a northern institution with some flavoring from other parts of the country, but it's predominantly a northern institution. Statistically, that's the fact. That's not an opinion, that's a fact. Statistically, that's just a fact. So and that's not just in terms of its total personnel strength, but also in terms of its officer core, right? Who are the officers
what
in the
seems to
military?
be the idea or their own ideal or something is somehow kind of not national. I will agree with you.
Exactly.
It's not really
Exactly.
national.
Who are the officer corps? Overwhelmingly, they're from a part of the country. How many Igbo or Niger Delta generals or admirals, or you don't see that many. The majority, and the captains, lieutenants, lieutenant colonels, most of them are from the middle belt and the north. That's just the reality of how the Nigerian military is. So the military is like a political institution in itself. Yes. So the minute you now have this, and the military has zero respect for this guy. He has no military pedigree whatsoever, and they know it, right? It's kind of like the same way they didn't really have any respect for Goodluck Jonathan. But in this case, it will be worse. In this case, it will be worse. But in addition to having no respect for him, they also openly despise him because everybody now knows what he is and where he's coming from. So the minute you have someone like that trying to act like GCFR on top of the heads of actual soldiers and actual trained officers, there's going to be a problem. So, which is why I keep on saying it, that if, I don't know what this man was thinking when he ran for president, because I personally think that running for president is one of the worst ideas he has ever had in his life. And whoever it was that told him, yes, that's a good idea, when he asked them, that person doesn't like him. Because by running for president, and especially by somehow getting himself declared winner, this man has essentially signed his own death. He has signed his own death warrant. He cannot last.
On the table for everybody with knife to start cutting. So we see how much of that. Could that also be the reason why somehow, right, David, they were telling everybody then, because I've been covering all of that as usual. Sure, you get everything that happened during the 2020 NSAS. If you go back on this diary, you will see a lot of them. Okay. But however, lately, you are supposed to be talking about the courts and all that. You as a person, right? I don't know if I'm right, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, okay? You are one of those who are opportuned to have access to the Peter Obi, the Obedient and Labour Party back room, the situation room during this election. Some of you have access to some numbers that came through, right? Despite all that violence everywhere. And there are a lot of people that confidently believe that the reason why the propaganda to talk about where is Tinubu, interim government, coup, and every other distraction, arrest Obi, they said the reason why all of these are coming up are just pure distraction, a delay, just for a moment for him to get inaugurated. And they will think it's actually exposed. So do you really think they are so scared of the courts or what could happen with what the Obi and his team have, or maybe Atiku too, right? That they have to deploy this latest propaganda that I think is just the beginning. And we're going to see worse, including violence. I mean, could there be something we don't know? David?
So I think what it is that they know better than anyone else what the actual election figures were. And they know just how badly they lost. They know it better than you and I. They know in Lagos, for example, do you know what it means for them to officially admit that they lost Lagos?
I didn't believe it.
So Officially, they admitted that they lost Lagos. So do you know what the actual margin was? The stated margin they gave, they say it was 500 and something thousand to 400 and something thousand. They made it once more. The actual margin, which I'm informed on very good authority, it was closer to 900 and something thousand to 100 and something thousand. They lost woefully, scandalous. It was a shellacking. It was a landslide. And such patterns were repeated across the country. Maybe not to the extent of Lagos, but something
even Abuja. Even Abuja.
So they know how badly they lost the election. So as far as they're concerned, you know how when you have a guilty conscience, anything that looks like an accusation, it will look as if it's coming after your life. So that's what it is. So whether it's courts, whether it's people who they accuse of coup baiting, whether it's the so-called interim government, like even some of these things might not even exist. It might just be figment of their imagination. But to somebody who knows what he has done, every shadow looks like it's chasing him. So, I mean, somebody who has spent weeks running away from people trying to serve him papers, that should give you an idea of how they see this whole thing. Because if you are genuinely not afraid of anything, then they should serve you the papers now.
What's the big winner?
Yeah, if you or even if you know that you didn't win, but the way you rigged it is still, it's still within an arguable limit. You understand?
The best of time.
Exactly. You take I go to court now, but you will notice immediately after the election, the first thing they started shouting was this: go to court, go to court, go to court. Which was what that actually meant was acknowledge that we've won, because by going to court, you've acknowledged that the election has a result that was stated, and now you're going to challenge that result. And then as soon as the people actually went to court, then immediately it switched to, they are trying to stop our inauguration from happening. Yeah. And then they now started trying to draw this completely farcical parallel with MK Abiola, that they are trying to do what IBB did to MK Abiola. I'm thinking to myself, so I don't understand. Peter Obi is now Ibrahim Babangida, or how does that work? Exactly.
You have been in that terrain for a while. Can opposition actually plan interim government or a coup? From your own experience, historically and all that, can opposition?
In Africa, it's categorically not possible.
It's impossible.
It's not possible. How do you want to do it?
From within, from inside.
Exactly. So if there's anybody who is plotting interim government or coup, they should go to Aso Rock and ask the people there. They are the ones who have the answers. It's not by coming to Twitter or coming to the media to release statements like the way the TSS did. That the plot to establish interim government is real, and then you're coming to post a statement about it on Twitter. So it's like, okay, so what do you want us to do about that? The ones who are plotting interim governments, assuming such a thing exists, go and meet the people who have the power to plot interim government. Stop coming to tell us.
Capacity and resources. But there is another one. I really don't want you to make a comment on that too detailed, okay? Because they will say it's what's it called again? Prejudicial. What is it called? Something that they will say, is anti the court, like you're abusing the court process if you talk about that, right? I know something that all institutions in Nigeria that we have seen so far, especially for those who didn't really believe, okay? Before now, we know police is corrupt, the military is corrupt, this one is corrupt, that one is corrupt, right? Then the obedience came, right, to expose that the police and the military are not just corrupt, they are deadly. They are, in fact, licensed terrorists. Obedient made the whole world to see that. We saw that happen on record. So, INEC came, like you said, they sold this cold zobo of something that's going to be different. There may be rigging, but it will be technologically almost impossible to retain any result from rigging with all the promises and the rest of that. But in a space of 3 weeks or 4 weeks, the obedient also exposed Mahmoud is one of the talked about anti-democratic elements in the world today. Thanks for that experience, as we can see. Well, I think this is now sending a kind of a shiver, right? A shiver down the spine of the judiciary. Now, it was APC who raised the alarm that the judiciary is about to be put on trial by the obedient. Why is that? Eh? Why are they worried that because they said that you are planning, the obedient are planning not to accept any court judgment other than the one that declare will be winner. Is that true? Like when you go to court, right? You expect to prove your case, right? And then it goes either way. So why do you think they are worried that you obedient want to put the judiciary on trial? Is judiciary on, I mean, please.
First of all, they need to explain why they are talking about a potential outcome as though it's a fact. They need to explain why they are talking about an outcome that declares Tinubu winner when the hearing has not even started. Do they know something that the rest of us don't know? Because the way I understand the court process is that it's either A or B. It's 50-50. So if it's not 50-50, then they need to come out and explain, where they got their own information from. Do they know something that the rest of us don't know?
Possibly.
Are they in contact with the judges? Have the judges told them something? That's the question that they need to answer. Because if not, then I don't see why. If the judiciary is on trial, then I don't think it hasn't been earned. The Nigerian judiciary, especially over the past 6 to 8 years, has done enough things to put itself on trial, has done enough things to show that people have a right to be concerned about its potential to pervert the course of this. So, but this wasn't up to a year ago when the former Chief Justice of Nigeria was basically bundled out of office. Again, I feel like amnesia is a very, very bad cultural trait we have in Nigeria. So people forget things very easily. The immediate past Chief Justice of Nigeria, Chief Justice Tanko Mohammed, his tenure was so disastrous that the Supreme Court, for lack of a better term, basically went on strike until he was bundled out of office. I've never seen that kind of scenario before, where the judiciary, the Supreme judges of the Supreme Court actually signed something like an open letter denouncing the Chief Justice. I've never seen such a thing like that before in any country. Nigeria is the first place I've seen it. So when you have a judiciary where that has happened within the past 18 months, we have a judiciary which has a history of, for example, declaring somebody that came fourth in an election to be the winner, Hope Uzodinma in Imo State. And the verdict was so unconscionable that even the justices who took part in that judgment were given visa bans by the US government. And this is on record. When you have that kind of judiciary there, I think people have a right to be concerned that this guy is actually going to
live up to expectation.
Are they going to actually deliver justice, or is there a preconceived act that they have in store? Are they going to play out some kind of drama that has already been conceived behind closed doors somewhere? I mean, this is a judiciary where you can go there and complain. You've taken somebody to court. This person stole my goat. You provide your evidence that this is your goat and this person stole it. You have picture and video evidence. This open and short case. And then the judge will start saying, okay, but according to the statement you wrote here, you claim that when he came into your farm to steal the goat, he did not specify whether it was his right leg or his left leg that was the first leg he used to enter the farm. So based on that, I'm going to strike out the case. All that stupid technicality justice that Nigerian judges are famous for. People have experienced these things, so people have a right to be bothered. Have you forgotten 2019? What the result of that supposed election tribunal was in 2019? Where, in the face of all the evidence that was produced, it was one of those sort of silly technicalities that they used to dismiss Atiku's petition and maintain Buhari as president. So yes, people have a right to be worried. I am worried.
David, it's been such a great pleasure. And then it seems that we haven't even scratched the surface yet. I have been the one asking all these questions. They are just germane ones to me personally. And just also to kind of have a little entrance into your world, because this is your world. You know this just like at the back of your hand. And again, My own concern, which is the title of this conversation tonight, is the consequences of all of this for us, economically, even security-wise, unity, and the rest of that. And seeing the fact that the obedient managed to be calm against all expectations, right? That if they were rigged so amateurishly, like you said, and openly like this, it will trigger a bit of a problem. Something they themselves actually envisaged before the elections, that people should come and sign peace accord, even with all they did after that. But 2 days after that, when the tension was rising and rising, I was monitoring, people were so angry for being disenfranchised by these rogues that are unable to even celebrate the fraud, right? Then Obi came out and he said, we should calm down. And just like that, everybody just calmed down and they are focusing on the court. Then APC brought this interim and the rest of that. Do you think, with the level at which these guys are going, provocation, gaslighting, all these lies, including incitement, for example, right? We have seen them chase Igbos out of Lagos and they brag about it openly. That has never been seen before. Not like this. Sure, you get. We have seen people living abroad sending cryptic messages on different platforms, inciting people why they must do everything to protect the interest of APC. Now, my question is actually like, how long do you think, right, the obedient will hold back before they begin to fight back? For now, APC is attacking people. They are attacking people. People are losing their arms. They are amputating people's legs. People have lost their lives. People lost their sights simply because they are identified with obedient and all that. Now, Obi said, calm down. The court will decide. Okay? But it seems that they are escalating it somehow. Let me play you one clip, right? Hang on.
Own influencers. May they bring, let us, this time is no more time of being same. If they say Asawaju is a drug dealer, P2B is a drug dealer, P2B is whatever. Me myself, Douglas, they're not going to bring and come near me. They won't. They're not bond them well. They know bond them well. It's goes for gas. If you tell me Shetima is Boko Haram, P2B is IPOP. Bond. If you want cry. If you want break your head, break your head. The time for being civil is gone. We have won the election. So when they bring that their nonsense, give it to them back. I was expecting the time of that election when they were pushing all sort of nonsense junks and this is what the one that they do with that what is his name? This Olumide Owori or something. That was the one I was like, oh, what's APC doing? I said it in our group. What is APC doing? Do you push your propaganda? Get 3 people, beat one person, video it, or LP is beating APC guy. Stage all these things and push it on the land.
Did you hear that, David?
Yeah.
I have another one.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, this is another one.
So long that we are not even challenging. To say that I'm not hungry is I'm just kidding myself. I've not been able to sleep. I've not been able to do anything. I've been awake all morning and I'm still going to work today. This is totally uncalled for. And we really need to check this. If APC wants to still remain in power in Lagos State, they need to check and clip the wings of these Igbos, the Easterners coming into our land and taking everything.
So, David, we are dealing with some dangerous people. And the end result of all of this is that we are all going to be consumed by it. People they are outside the country, right? Inciting people back there on this APC must do this to Igbos and all of that. How long do you think people can hold back before they will no longer have to just be responding and fighting online? I mean, defending themselves. That they will no longer listen to Obi's calm down. I mean, I'm seeing something like that, but I actually want to hear from you. How long do you think they can hold back?
I think there'll be two scenarios when all bets will be off. The first scenario is if the election tribunal or whatever um, delivers a ruling before May 29, and that ruling is a ridiculous decision. I think that's one of the scenarios in which you see chaos. And I think the second scenario is um, if for whatever reason the security forces um, something enters their head and then they decide that they want to arrest Peter Obi.
Hmm.
Because I think that particular kite has been flown already. If they do that and then there's no Peter Obi tell everybody to calm down, then I think there'll be a real problem. A real problem.
Hmm.
It's always important to remember that these recordings you just played, the people in those recordings, all those people who attend those spaces, that entire political movement is not made up of cerebral people.
Hmm.
For lack of a better expression, these are some of the dumbest people out there. It's just a fact, unfortunately. So, and the reason I'm mentioning this is to make the point that these people do not understand the concept of elastic limits and
Hmm.
knowing when to stop. These people will just keep on going because that's how dumb people are. They hear go, they don't hear come.
Hmm.
So when they've been unleashed or they feel like they've been unleashed by their supposed electoral victory and their party to go out and you know act crazy or do all those things they said they were going to do in those recordings, they are not capable of self-regulation. Right? These are the people who have been going around inflicting physical violence
Hmm.
on other people. I think if you were to ask the very top echelon of the APC, even though those ones they clearly condone it, but if you had to ask them one on one, that do they necessarily want people to go around chopping off the arms and eyes of Igbo people in Lagos? Is that really what they want?
Hmm.
Mm, it's for some it might be yes, for some it might be no. But it doesn't matter as the people at the bottom because those ones all they just hear is okay, they've had an opportunity, they've
Just
been
go for
given
it.
the green light, so just do what you like. So the real danger actually that I'm seeing here, and it's actually very unfortunate that because of the atmosphere we're in now, these are conversations that we cannot have now. Because
Hmm.
as you said, even my indigency is being questioned. My Yorubaness is in question now because that's the world we live in now. Apparently, if not, it's a real conversation that needs to be had. That for putting aside the Igbo people or the other people that you categorize as Igbo, putting aside all those people for a change, what is actually going on now? Eventually, inevitably, if it's not checked,
Mhm.
is going to develop into full blown intra Yoruba class warfare,
Like a
which will be
proper
which will
like a proper xenophobia, like xenophobic,
yeah.
sort of campaign. It's so
No,
similar,
no,
isn't
no,
it? Or
no. So
what?
I'm even saying I'm even saying putting aside the Igbos and the
Oh,
supposed
okay. Even
outsiders
within, yeah,
that
even
that
within
yeah
said
yeah
Yoruba.
that
Go on. Yeah.
even if you're able to, even if theoretically, I don't know how you want to do it, but even theoretically you are able to send all the Igbos or whoever away from Lagos and Lagos becomes Yoruba enclave, the problem will not end there. In fact, it will just be starting. Because then, because what's really going on, what I can see, and which is not, it's not politically correct to say it now,
Hmm.
but what I can see is that there's a particular class within the Yoruba population that believes that um, its time is now, and it's a very very specific type of uh, it's a very conservative type of people, overwhelmingly Muslim, by the way, even though that's not politically correct to say, but it just happens to be true as well.
Hmm.
So inevitably you are going to start having both class and religious conflicts within the Yoruba, which is an ethnic group that historically has never had intra ethnic class and religious conflicts.
Hmm.
Historically, the Yoruba has been probably the only ethnic group in Nigeria to have been able to maintain Christian and Muslim in pretty much equal proportion
Hmm.
without rubbing up against each other. Historically, that
Mhm.
is starting to change. That is starting to change. And for now, the Igbos are sort of they're the buffer that
Like
allows
the
you understand
intermediary of what is still to
exactly.
come.
They
Once
are, they are the buffer
picture, they will
exactly,
actually approach the real terror. I've said
and
that
then it
here.
becomes a problem.
You get what I mean? I've told people here we are among the most traveled ethnic nationalities from Nigeria, Yorubas. A lot of us have intermarried. We have children who are grown up adults now.
Yeah.
This election puts their indigenship into question.
I mean, they said that Badebo wrote Vival. They say he's not Yoruba. I'm like, what? They say he's half blood. What does that mean? Exactly, that he's half blood. I don't understand what that means because the Rotsvival family has been recognized as an indigenous family of Lagos for the best part of 1.5 centuries. So
Right.
these people whose ancestors, many of them moved to Lagos in the 80s or the 90s, are now pulling ethnic rank on Gbadebo Revival and saying it's not Yoruba. So that means somebody like me, one day I'll go back to Nigeria, I'll go back to Lagos, and somebody will tell me that,
You are not
well, my mom comes from Akwa Ibom. That's what's going to happen.
So
And that makes me half blood.
all your children, they will not be seen as a proper Yoruba. That's the concept that I said. See, I was raising the alarm. I said Nigeria is so messed up right now. But with APC and Tinubu and what we know they are capable of, we can, as well as probably kiss Nigeria goodbye.
Yeah.
However,
and these people are dull enough to push things to that extent because the Buhari people, you have to give them some credit. The Buhari people are also very ethnocentric. They're also very clannish and tribalistic, but they at least understand that on some level, there are some lines that you can't cross. Behind closed doors, obviously, we know the things they say. They call Igbo people Iyamiri, all this. We know they do those things, right? We know. But you will never see them come out in public with their chest, come out and make certain comments. You had Bayo Ononuga, who is an official spokesperson of the supposed president-elect, coming out to say that I am Yoruba first before I'm Nigerian. Now, if you are speaking in the capacity of a member of Afenifere, that's an understandable comment to make. If you are speaking as a member of OPC, that's an understandable comment to make. But you say you are speaking as an official representative of a national presidential candidate who supposedly has won a national election to become the national president, and you are saying I am Yoruba first before I'm Nigerian, and then on top you're now saying that let this election be basically you're singling out a specific ethnic group. Buhari's people never did that. They never did that. It's not because they didn't want to, but they were smart enough to understand that this doesn't end well.
Lines you don't cross.
It doesn't end well.
You don't go back.
Exactly. It doesn't end
well. Dropping down, David. Like you said, they don't know how to stop. Fanika Yode, Festus Keyamo, Bayo Nonuga, Deli Alake, as well as their foot soldiers. They don't know how to stop. Right? So, David, it's been a pleasure, I have to admit, okay? Indeed, it's also been an eye-opener for a lot of us here tonight. I am going to have us take a break, if that's okay, yeah? So that you can actually get up from there for the past 2 hours, right? Get some refreshment and all that for another 2-3 minutes, right? Then we can just round it up before we go. You know, one of the purpose of this conversation tonight is to, as who you are, right, is to further help a lot of people who are confused now, and rightly so. There's so much going on, so much lie being fed out there, and deliberately so to distract people. Now, we just want people to have something that they should remember, that whether you think you are fighting now and you have lost or there's nothing you can do anymore, when you remember what Nigeria will become, a narco state, as well as profiling of Nigerians abroad like you've never seen before, well, that may be a charging port for you, never to stop. David, let's go get some refreshment, okay? I so appreciate this, right? So we'll come back in a minute. Let's take 5, okay? I'll be back before then. So, David, thank you so much, yeah? So, everyone, if you are still here watching us, brilliant. Please take a moment and then like this broadcast. One moment. Somebody said that this talk is foolish. Do you know something? I don't know if you probably just dropped that unintentionally, but when we see guys like yourself, we call them stray dogs. Where is Princess? Where is she? It seems there are some stray dogs on that YouTube. Usually you would have probably cleaned them up, okay? I'll try some. Now, talking about criminals who have who sort of inherited the fraud that happened in 2023, the one that is an ex-convict, the one that is also wishing to become your Senate president. If Kolu is drug baron, Shitty Man is Boko Haram, then you are welcome to the world of another thief who stole election because he wants to go and be the Senate president of Nigeria. Ojiuzo Kalu, the owners of the election, they don't chase them. Listen to this. They say, bring back our certificate of return. Return the certificate of return. Voila, everywhere. Since morning. Ataro. This one is from Abia. They are looking for Ojiuzo Kalu.
The streets. This is a call for inclusion of Abia North Senatorial District in the April 15, 2023 scheduled supplementary elections and withdrawal of certificate of return from Senator Ojiuzo Kalu. Gentlemen of the press, following the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, press statement on Monday, March 27, 2023, which stated that April 15, 2023 has been fixed for the conduct of all outstanding governorship, national, and state assembly supplementary elections. We, the coalition of civil society organizations and stakeholders in Abia North Senatorial District, wish to appeal to the chairman of the electoral body, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, and the commission to include Abia North Senatorial District in this supplementary polls, and also withdraw the certificate of return from Senator Ojiuzo Kalu. This appeal becomes very necessary following: 1, the post-election outcry and protest by indigents of the senatorial districts on account of disenfranchisement and perceived deception and compromise by the officials of the Electoral Commission. 2, the report by the accredited INEC election observers, which affirmed that the senatorial election that took place in Abia North on 25th February 2023 was below the standard and acceptable electoral practice, contrary to the INEC Electoral Act and guidelines, and against the wishes and expectations of the electorate and the constituents. 3, that the INEC returning officer, after noticing some irregularities and logistic challenges on the election day being 25th February 2023, announced to the observers, party agents, and others in Ohafia, after consultation with the resident electoral officer in Umuahia, that there would be a rerun election on Sunday, 26th February 2023, in some places in Abia North where elections didn't hold. But the elections never held till date. 4th, that from the report from INEC accredited observers, election didn't hold in over 100 polling units across the underlisted LGS in Abia North Senatorial District, with over 80,000 registered voters. Some of these LGAs are Ohafia local government area. In Ohafia local government area, we have about 4 wards where election did not hold. Isiama had 47 units. Aboji has 10 units. Okamu has 27 units. Ndielu, 4 units. When you come to Arochukwu local government area, Amuvi has 4 units. Eloha has 1 unit. Amangu, 3 units. Oheke, 3 units. Coming to Isukwato local government area, the 2 units in ABSU, that is Abia State University, the election did not hold in these places. Fifth, there was total violation of electoral guidelines in the conduct of the election in Abia North Senatorial District, such as not counting and announcement of results opened by the presiding officer at the polling units, not posting of results in the polling units, not transmitting the results at the conclusion of voting to the INEC result viewing, that is the IREF portal. As coalitions and stakeholders, we want to call on the chairman and the Electoral Commission to withdraw the certificate of return given to Senator Ojus Okalo, as the election which announced his victory is inconclusive. And for the same senator to now clamor for the seat of the Senate President of Nigeria, as he called his turn, is a joke of the highest level and a slap to our democracy. That someone...
What shall I say unto the Lord?
Yes, Lord!
All I have to say,
Thank you, Lord.
what
shall I say? Thank you,
Nigeria is so